Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Guys Who Stare at Stats. I'm your host, Cade Kennedy, alongside co host Connor Gray. And, well, we had an absolute blast of week one of the NFL. We're going to recap week one for you, talk about that amazing Monday night game between Baltimore and Las Vegas, and then get you set up for a preview of what's coming up in week two. So, Connor, when you look at the slate of the board of week one, what game really stood out to you the most?
I'd say I'd say a few of the games was obviously the first Bucks and Cowboys. That was a great way to start the season, and that Chiefs and Browns, one of the better games of the week. Week obviously, for me as Chiefs fan was even better. You for a Browns fan not so much.
It was good for three quarters, I'll say that.
And then Baker threw a tantrum.
Yeah, well,
Kidding.
we'll get to that game. We'll get to the segment of the show where I rant for 15 minutes about that game.
Say other games. I obviously the might be our last game would be Vegas versus Baltimore.
Yeah.
Just kind of like a little overview of it. Started slow, and then just at the end, especially that overtime, it just got crazy really quickly, and it was one way to cap off the week one.
Exactly. Now I kind of want to run not too much game by game. That was what Andrew and I did on Monday. But I mean, kind of hitting some of the highlights from each of these games, as you mentioned, starting with, game one of week one. Man, Dallas looked about how I thought they would. The offense is there. Prescott looked good.
Oh, yeah.
Tom Brady had a few mess ups, but when you get at an old age like that, that becomes a bit more understandable.
Yeah, he actually overall he did not actually play bad. I know
Exactly.
it shows two interceptions, but both of them were not his fault. He threw a Hail Mary to the end zone, which got picked off. They tried, and of course Dallas tried to run that back, and then the other interception that he had hit Fournette right in the hands, or it was right at Fournette, and Fournette just didn't catch it.
Exactly, and that's what I mean. Like, even if once you get kind of, I guess, behind a certain threshold, things become more understandable. But even with Brady, like you just mentioned, not really his fault. So
it's like they actually, in all honesty, Tampa shouldn't have had to play from behind at the very end, but they put themselves in that hole because the defense didn't really play as well as they could in certain times in the game, and offense wasn't always there every drive. But this is the one thing: every team makes a mistake. Do not let Tom Brady have the ball last 90% probably over 90% of the time. He's going to come in the clutch and get them the game win, whether it be a game-winning touchdown or a game-winning field goal. You can't give Tom Brady a chance to do what he does best and come in the clutch.
I mean, you absolutely can. I mean, just he's so good. That's all you really can say.
I know.
For a lot of people that don't like him, for a lot of people that do like him, everyone has to agree he is the GOAT.
He is
definitely. There's zero reason he wouldn't be at this point.
No.
There wasn't a reason why he wouldn't be the GOAT even 5 years ago. He's just been such a dominant player in the NFL, even if, he doesn't make the most athletic plays. He doesn't make the most, sometimes the most memorable things, but he does everything you're supposed to do. And
he gets the job done.
Exactly. At the end of the day, he gets the job done. He wins the Super Bowl. We all get mad about it and say, this will be the year they don't come back and win. And then they're always in the race.
Yeah, it's like, the thing is, it feels like ever since 2015, despite being it feels like he's way past his prime. It feels like he kicked it up a notch.
I don't know if he ages. I legitimately don't know sometimes.
But it's like it doesn't feel like he really it feels like, I know, like, he had that magical 2007 season where they were really good, and then obviously they lost the Super Bowl that year. But it feels like obviously he had those for almost about 8 years, 8 seasons or so. He was good. He was great, but didn't really do much. Wasn't like people weren't calling him the GOAT or anything. But ever since 2015, he's been the best player. He knows how to get it done, and he plays well. And of course, you're going to have many of his detractors try to point certain instances. Well, this and that. I'm like, you can't, you don't win seven total Super Bowls and not be great.
Exactly. And then moving on to Philadelphia and Atlanta. I mean, not a whole lot to take away from this
No.
one, except, I mean, Jalen Hurts played well. The Eagles looked good. The Falcons looked about how we expected the Falcons to look.
And they are the Falcons.
Yeah. And then Pittsburgh and Buffalo, another really defensive battle, which we expected from both of these teams. Pittsburgh's special teams showing up towards the end of the game with a blocked punt for a touchdown.
I was really not expecting Steelers to come out and actually pretty much whip them.
Yeah.
I know it was mainly a defensive battle through that entire game, with obviously Pittsburgh's defense carrying the Steelers to that victory. But Ben did what he was supposed to do. They scored, and special teams, like you said, came for them at the very end, blocked a punt and scored.
Exactly. And then one of the more fascinating games of the week
Man,
that a lot of people, well, two of them that we're really about to get into, Cincinnati defeating Minnesota in overtime. This was a game I really didn't expect. I did not expect Cincinnati to pull this off. I did not expect this to get to overtime.
no.
Joe Burrow played fantastic. Joe Mixon had a big game. Jamar Chase had a big game. I mean, this was exactly what the Bengals needed to start the year. Always, I mean, even if they didn't win this game, I would still say this was a good start for the Bengals. But, I mean, Minnesota just does not look. We mentioned they weren't going to be what they used to be, but they looked somehow worse than I thought they would.
Like, it looked like with their offense, like, I know they had their struggles here and there, but their offense didn't look too bad. It was their defense that didn't look that great to me.
Yeah.
Personally, I mean, obviously people are going to say but that's just how I viewed it. I don't know how others thought of that game with Minnesota, but Bengals just came out ready to play, and they pulled out the victory. I think that's a great way to start your season. I was thinking Cincinnati wasn't even going to put up much of a fight. I mean, we were all unsure about that offensive line, but they did a great job.
They did.
Burrow played well. Nick Mixon did a great job, and then
did a great job. 127 rushing yards. You don't see that a lot.
No, you don't.
I mean, he was the rushing leader of the entire NFL Week 1. Looking at it here,
that's good on Cincinnati for getting their first win of the season.
Exactly, and a game that was not really entertaining until the final 2 minutes. San Francisco 41-33 over Detroit. This was a game that looked locked up for the Niners. And then here comes Detroit getting a touchdown. They get a 2-point conversion. You get an onside kick. You get another touchdown. You get a 2-point conversion. San Francisco fumbles the ball trying to run the clock out. Detroit gets down to the San Francisco 25, and they just couldn't finish it off. They couldn't tie it up. They cannot seal the deal in regulation. And so San Francisco, and what we all thought, okay, San Francisco looks really dominant. They look like their old selves again. This is going to be a dominant start to the year. Okay, never mind what is going on.
That's why you play to win the game. You don't San Francisco. I understand you're killing them. You're killing them really badly, and you decided you're like, you know what, we're gonna step on the brake and kind of just try to run the clock down, but you can't. You gotta make sure you finish them off where they can't really do anything. The fact that Detroit had a shot to actually tie the game, well, at least score and try to tie it, is just wow.
Exactly. And then speaking of blowouts, Arizona just blowing up Tennessee 38-13. This was a shock to me because I did not know how good Arizona was going to be. The NFC West, we expect to be a very good division, but Arizona, they look just as much contenders as everyone else in that division.
Oh, most definitely. I mean, Tennessee just did not Derrick Henry only didn't even get over 70 yards rushing. Tannehill didn't play all that great, and Julio Jones was basically ineffective. Their defense, and the score says it for itself. Their defense didn't really do much to stop anything. Kyler Murray in that offense for Arizona is just really good.
Yeah, it really shows. I mean, another year to develop and do. You have DeAndre Hopkins as well still. I mean, he's still a big factor, 83
Hmm.
yards. I mean, Kyler Murray throws for 289. I mean, really fun start for the Cardinals. And then another fun start for the NFC West as Seattle gets a 28-16 win at Indianapolis.
That game wasn't really that close.
It was Russell Wilson and the Seahawks being the Seahawks, doing what they do best, just going on the road, big win for them.
Hmm.
Any road win in the NFL, I would really say, is a big win. But another one that people probably didn't see that much of or didn't think about that much, that was a really close game. The Chargers going on the road and beating the football team. Herbert throws for 337. Absolutely kind of sliced through a really good defense. Ryan Fitzpatrick gets injured. Taylor Heineke comes in. He'll be the starting quarterback for Thursday night's game coming up here against the Giants. Not to get too ahead of myself.
But it was a obviously really close game down to the feels like down to the wire. Obviously, Chargers didn't choke it.
Yeah, they
and
did not. They did not pull the Chargers.
And Herbert just played well most of that for pretty much that entire game, throwing over 300 yards, and he got himself a touchdown. Though he did throw an interception.
Yeah,
But he overall played very well. I wouldn't even be disappointed with his disappointments. Chargers obviously found a great replacement for Phillip Rivers,
they did.
even though it took a bit.
Yeah, it wasn't a pretty transition for a few games there, but
No.
I mean, Herbert looks the role. I mean, it feels like the Chargers are right back where they were a few years ago.
As long for them, obviously for me as a Chiefs fan, I want them to not get back to being good. But obviously, if they just objectively looking as a football fan, if they can just fix a few things on defense for the most part, but they played a really solid game against Washington. But you got to play like that against other teams. I expect their offense to be obviously continue to get better for the most part, but and obviously as long as they don't have any special team disasters, they should be a really good team to. They could possibly, if they play well for us season, they could be a wild card team.
Exactly. Now, another really fun storyline from week one. Sam Darnold, now member of the Panthers, gets a win over his old team, the Jets.
Gets revenge.
Also, the debut of Zach Wilson. He had a kind of rough start, but he improved as the game went on. And Carolina getting a 19-14 win there.
Mm-hmm.
Christian McCaffrey, 98 rushing yards. Sam Darnold throws for 279. Now, another debut we saw was the debut of Trevor Lawrence. As the Jags go to Houston, take on the Texans, Tyrod Taylor being the starter for the Texans. That's just still weird to think about. But, I mean, the Texans do what I thought the Texans would do, 37-21. And, I mean, Jacksonville looks about like they did last year.
I would say Trevor, while obviously having one of those rookie games where it was more like, he's still made some rookie mistakes, but he still played for the most part well. Just obviously your point.
Well, I mean, the 3 interceptions are a bit.
Well, I was like, he had some moment. Like I said, he had moments where he played well, and then he had moments where he obviously did not play well.
Yeah.
Like I said, it was one of those rookie games.
Exactly.
But obviously, I wasn't expecting much, and it doesn't help that. Like obviously, you know how certain parts of sports internet is, where there's apparently rumors, things going around about things are really not good in Jacksonville with Urban Meyer and the team.
That would not surprise me one bit.
I mean, I don't, but it doesn't help you have that circulating around. Plus, just obviously, the Texans played a really good football game. They pretty much were just way better than Jacksonville. I just can't. That's all you can say is Texans just played better.
Yeah. One thing you can say about the next game I'm going to talk about is it was a very fun game to watch. It was a very defensive battle, which is something I was not expecting. Miami gets a 17-16 win over New England. I mean, You get Mac Jones versus Tua Tagovailoa, two Alabama quarterbacks going at it. A lot of Alabama players in this game,
Yeah.
but I mean, this was an absolute good game to watch. It got overshadowed by Green Bay, New Orleans, and Cleveland, Kansas City, those being kind of two of the bigger games of the day.
Yeah.
But it was still a very entertaining game to keep an eye on.
Oh yeah. You I sadly couldn't really watch this game as much, but I from what I could see, but it was really heavily, like you said, defensive battle, and then you had but both quarterbacks showed up to play.
Exactly. And then the real surprise of the day for me, Green Bay getting absolutely destroyed
Yeah.
against New Orleans. This game for a neutral site in Jacksonville. Jameis Winston throws 5 touchdowns, but only for 148 yards.
He didn't have to really do much.
I know. It was really weird watching that score because it was like, okay, Green Bay's going to strike eventually. Green Bay's going to do something eventually, right? No.
No.
I guess not. Okay.
Like literally, it's like the Saints like poking them with a stick, like, come on, do something.
Yeah, it was just kind of like, are Aaron Rodgers not looking too hot? I mean,
The
this
whole
entire team didn't look that great.
yeah, the whole team didn't play good.
Exactly.
Obviously you expect Rodgers to be able to play better than everybody else on that team, but obviously if he can't do anything, the rest can't do anything. I mean, they still have issues on defense. I mean, give up 38 points. I mean, I understand that don't have as much field position to work with, especially when it's pretty like if you look at their total yards, it's not really much to really look at. I mean, Jameis didn't even throw over 200 yards.
Exactly.
And the run game for New Orleans they didn't have as many yards with any of their backs. It didn't seem like. So it was just like, what's going on?